Okay, I'm just going to cover some key aspects to be aware of when designing hair, things to look out for and things to sort of make sure you try to include. So this example I've got in front of me here is a prime example of, I would say, hair being styled well. So there, you'll see in the hair it's not, the hair is not being over specified. So in areas, okay, I've got that in the razor. Yep. So in areas like here, there's not too much detail. Okay. So this entire area is not overwhelmed with detail. Same with this area here. So you'll see the body of the hair, the middle part of the hair, is not over detailed. But then where the hair originates from, or where it's headed, sometimes we'll have additional detail there. So here we've got some nice detail, just generally points of interest where the hair is overlapping or where it's originating from. There we've got sort of more contrast, more detail. Okay. Once again, you can just see how the hair flows is not very linear. So the hair is not just like this. It's got interesting shapes to it, sort of like S curves, where the hair is just sort of flowing out from where it's bunched up, and this makes interesting shapes. Now the same shape isn't repeated, so it's not the whole time the same S shape, because then you'd end up with once again sort of like parallel shapes, and it looks very non-organic. So you'll see here these shapes are used a bit, but then a new one is started just to break that. Okay, that's sort of what you would see, just to break that monotonous repetition. And another thing, if I just remove these, is to look out for is line weight. So some lines are heavier and some are lighter, so that variation in line weight is important. And then lastly, let me just go and put this in so we can actually do something with it quickly, is actually just feathering the end of your lines so that they're not so hard. Just add a bit of feather to the lines. It adds visual interest. It's all about visual interest, so that doesn't look so, how can I say, mechanically constructed. It just looks a bit more natural. So you'll see, if I just create a new layer here and I go back to my brush, you'll see this line, it's not, let me just draw more further around it so you can actually see the line. You'll see that the darkness and the thickness changes here versus here. So there's variation, and that's so important, and understanding where that variation is and how to use it. So here we can see just an interesting shape, another one here, and then new ones over here. It just makes for great design. Just good design overall. So something to have a look at is, so you can see that the design wasn't just all just spawning from the same place and then that just running straight through to the top. You generally want to avoid the same line running all the way down, because it just looks strange. So you normally will sort of cut it off at a certain point and then start a new one, because the hair is overlapping. Generally, you're not going to have that same hair follicle visible the whole time. So you'll see that it has its little run for a while and then it gets cut off. Okay, when the hair comes out, there are so I touched on it a little bit earlier, but when you like have hair come out like that, instead of having them all come out sort of tapering from the same point, what you can do is have a new one join in like that, and then start a new one again, and then have another one join in, and that breaks it. Okay, so I'm going to go over to another to this screenshot. Now what we want to do with this here is implement what we've learned here on this other hair texture. So first thing I'll point out is be careful of keep your eye out for these steps in your textures. These breaks, they probably come from baking the low poly model, or maybe when painting the low poly model you get the low geometry showing, but just be mindful of that and just avoid that. You can see it here again, just these steps, just these breaks over there. Alright, so now we can see the things we've learnt looking at this benchmark. We can see where we can implement them, because we've got these very sort of parallel lines, and they're running straight from the top to the bottom. So the things that we've learned not to do, we're seeing here. So they are running the full length, and they quite parallel to one another, and it removes that organic aspect to the hair design. So I would say that, for example, we would run this hair here. Just give me a moment. Just hold my mouse. There we go. And you can see you can just taper it off like that. You can run this one here and then run it straight into there. Run this up here. Run that into there. You don't have to run them straight down, straight down, straight down, straight down. It looks, yeah, it has a sort of unnatural look to it. And like I said, you don't have to taper them all from the same point. You can run one into the side of another one, up like that, and then start a new one. Okay. So you don't want to have them all just coming out from the same place. You want to avoid that sort of, how can I say, on the nose, very sort of predictable lines and shapes. You kind of want to just create something interesting that the person looking at it be like, oh wow, that's fun to look at, versus something that's too predictable, I guess is the way I can put it. So now we see we flared out from there, we flared out from there. Now I can run one from here into that, you know. Obviously when you're dealing with hair that's hanging, you generally is going to taper to a point, so we just keep it a bit closer, so it doesn't look too strange. Okay. Alright. Yeah, I think I've covered everything. That's the main stuff. Alright, so just to recap, we'll go back to here. You just yeah, you want to avoid lines that are running parallel to one another and that are running the full length of the texture. You want to avoid that. You want to create interesting shapes. You don't want to repeat those same ones over and over. You want to kind of sometimes taper into another one, and you can start a whole new branch from there. You don't want to over detail the hair where you're painting each hair follicle. You kind of want to leave pockets for the eye to rest. So you'll suggest hair and you'll detail hair, and then other areas you can just kind of like you know, suggest hair. You don't have to put in each individual hair, and then just feather and taper feather your hair and create some interesting effects with just the actual feathering and tapering of your lines, your line weights, that kind of stuff. Okay, hopefully that helps. Take care.